You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
Since 2009, HRN podcasts have been exploring the wide world of food, beverage, and agriculture. Learn more at heritageradionetwork.org.
This episode is brought to you by Wisconsin Cheese. We've been making cheese in Wisconsin since before we were even a state, which may be one reason why we win so many awards for it. It's what happens when a whole state dreams in cheese. Find your next favorite cheese at wisconsincheese.com.
We talk about food, we talk about music, with musical dudes. Finger on the pulse, Snacky Tunes.
Hello and welcome to Snacky Tunes. I'm your host, Darin Bresnitz. Today's episode is dedicated to the early conversations and initial recovery caused by the LA wildfires, both in the Palisades and Eaton Canyon and beyond. We are devastated but hopeful, and we are hopeful because the culinary community is doing what they do best, and that is supporting the entire community and the city by feeding them, giving them hospitality and love when they need it the most. We have three guests today. First up, Mary Sue Milliken, who chats about her work with the World Central Kitchen and her lifelong dedication and love for LA. And then we have from one of our favorite restaurants, Home State, we have Andy, who is going to be talking about their donation effort and their proactive way to bring the breakfast tacos to emergency workers and firefighters, and her seeing people out in the community and what that means. And then finally, we have Travis Hayden, who was on last week's episode, the Bar Etoile episode, which I recommend you listening to, which we recorded the day of the fires. And we talk about how our lives have changed in the last week, what the culinary workers are going through, and what it means to sit at the center of being both someone who's supporting and feeding the community and a victim of the fires. There are a lot of links in the episode description to help if you want to donate. Right now, it feels that there's a lot of physical resources that are coming. Financial resources are needed. Gift cards, pure cash donations, Venmos, Zells, whatever. That's really going to help. And if not these restaurants, then find your favorite restaurant in LA and help them out. There's a lot of people who are doing a lot of great work. We will rebuild. We will bring our community back together. It is going to be a very, very long road. But I love you, LA. I love you, the culinary community, both here and abroad. And so please sit back, relax, and hear Snacky Tunes here on HRN. Mary Sue, welcome to Snacky Tunes. First, let me just say thank you for all you're doing for the community. It's amazing to see the culinary community do what they do best, which is hospitality. This is hospitality at a 10. So thank you, and thank you for working with World Central Kitchen and feeding people and keeping people going.
It's actually my way of coping is to keep myself busy, and it just feels like the right thing to do, of course. Absolutely.
So before we get into how people can help, because I think that's what people want to do, what are you seeing on the front lines, or what are you seeing interacting with the community? What is it like right now out there?
Well, I've been part of the World Central Kitchen community for over 10 years. I'm one of their chef corps people, but I've never been this up close and personal to their work. So, they called us, they texted me on Tuesday night, asked if we could, bring our truck and do some feeding of people in need starting Wednesday at noon. So we literally were at the Pasadena Convention Center feeding evacuees and firemen and all the first responders. And we were there for solid 5 days. I think we served 14,000 meals. But World Central Kitchen is pretty incredible to see their operation this close. It was, they're very, very good at what they do. You know, they connect people who can cook great food with people who need it. And all those logistics are kind of, mind blowing that they keep it all straight. I've been, on a WhatsApp chain with this woman named Tatiana who has, she answers in like 2 seconds, and she's in Honduras, but she does this for World Central Kitchen all over the world.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
The Thursday after the fire, I'd hiked into Altadena I had to see where our house stood. And when I hiked out, by the time I got back, World Central Kitchen was already set up with Doolin's and Sousa Repas at the corner of Woodbury Fair Oaks. And I walked out and like, do you want a burrito? And I was like, yes, absolutely. I would love nothing more than a burrito. So obviously in these types of situations, it's immediate. Like there's so much food coming in. There's so much things that are not shelf stable, like fresh food and things like that. Obviously there's canned food, canned good. What is the long-term approach for feeding people? Because for those who might not be on the ground, people aren't going to get back into their homes for months, maybe years at some point, and people are still displaced with the housing crisis that was already at a breaking point in LA is now pushed to a crazy point. So for people who are like, and it's easy to move on, but if people are like, oh, how does this stay sustainable? How do we stay involved over months?
Well, I mean, that's what's so kind of magical about World Central Kitchen. They're the first on the ground, and they're the last to leave. So they will, if there is any need anywhere, they are going to be, figuring out how to make those connections. So I was on the board of Share Our Strength for 20 years, and it's all about feeding hungry children, No Kid Hungry campaign. And the CEO of Share Our Strength, he and I have already been talking about the schools that have burnt down and the children who were depending on those meals. Yeah. And World Central Kitchen is right there ready to figure out ways to connect those children with the meals. And that's the part that, really gets tricky when there's too many kind of chiefs and not like, I'm thrilled to be an Indian. Like all I have to do is cook my food.
Yeah.
Take it where it needs to go, make sure it's delicious and nutritious. And, I think we take a lot of pride in making sure that, there's a variety. So if you're living at the Pasadena Convention Center on a cot, you don't get the same food every day. We do,
I know.
We did crab cakes one day because someone donated 101 pounds of rock crab meat. It was delicious.
I'm sure. Yeah.
And then we got 240 pounds of frozen barramundi from a donation. Some of those donations are a little harder to, figure out. You want to make sure that it's not something that's going to take a ton of labor.
Sure. But, so no 100-layer lasagnas coming out.
No, we had another really interesting, beautiful donation of local rockfish.
Yeah.
There's a woman who fishes, and she brought us 60 pounds of filleted rockfish yesterday morning. I didn't have my team didn't have time to process it. Nikki Nakayama from N Naka had texted me and said, "Is there anything I can do?" And I said, "Can I bring you this fish? And would you please make it into a delicious fish salad?" And she was like, "I'm in."
No problem. Best person to hit to prep fish.
Yeah.
The other thing about this is that a lot of people still want to keep their dignity, still want to keep their pride because this was something that happened to them. In interacting with these people, what advice would you give to those who may have not lost anything, may have not suffered, may not even be in LA? but want to reach out while still being respectful. And to your point, in you saying we're not giving them the same food every day, like, that's different than being like, just be lucky we're feeding you. And I think that's a real good example of it. But what else have you seen, even just in talking to people?
Yeah, I feel like I've been, we've distributed food all the way down the line of people waiting to check in with FEMA. And just to stop for a second, look them in the eye, ask them if they want some fresh tangerines or a bottle of juice, or we had sandwiches, just to stop for that second. And, I had 2 women with tears in their eyes that I just gave them big hugs. There's not that much to say. I don't think there are adequate words for how to comfort people who are in that much shock and are grieving such a loss. But if you're just there and listen and, rub their back a little bit and give them a nice hot meal, I think that's my approach.
And that's sometimes what you need. So the restaurant community has also been affected. A lot of legendary Altadena restaurants like Fox's and Little Red Hen and places like that have
Fox's
been
actually. Monique King was was a chef for us for many years.
Amazing. I mean, it's a legendary spot, and they've been devastated. How is the restaurant community trying to help other restaurants?
Well, the restaurant industry is so generous, and so the restaurant recovery for the ones that have been damaged or completely devastated and lost, those are going to be a long haul. Oops, sorry.
Hey, the work doesn't stop.
That's for sure. So they're going to be a long haul, but I'm also very concerned about the restaurants that aren't necessarily with smoke damage or burn, but they just lost 75% of their business.
Right.
Over the last couple of weeks or last week. And it's not, and I've talked to a lot of restaurateurs in LA who are very much on the brink. So I think we have to come together, because restaurants are such an important part of the social fabric of every neighborhood. And the neighborhoods that have been devastated, we have to really focus on those. But we also, I think, need to work with our legislators to make sure there's support for the other restaurants throughout our communities where, they were already, from COVID, from, the strikes,
no
Hollywood not being very, being down 50% from their normal usage of restaurants. So everything, it's just kind of built up. And this last disaster, I want to make sure. So what I've done is I've got a fund with Regarding Her that's going to support small businesses owned by women. And we are getting a lot of support from around the country. So, 35 Chicago chefs have already started a 2-week program where one menu item is the profits from that are going to go to rebuild the restaurant communities.
It's amazing. Up in the Bay too. I saw Flour and Water. Yeah. Yeah.
In Philadelphia, they're doing the same. I'm hearing from, it's kind of also what happened when Lahaina burned.
Yes.
A lot of us did a bunch of fundraisers, but I think so that's one thing. I would also encourage the public to go out and support their local favorite restaurants as much as possible right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially for people who don't understand how long it takes to get money, because they go, oh, there's FEMA and there's an interest-free SBA loan and things like that. It's for businesses that are week to week, even if they get delays on utilities and the hard costs, they still need money in their pockets for employees. I've seen people who are down dishwashers. Like, you know, if you like washing dishes and you want to get your hands dirty, like go find a restaurant and call them and see, you know, can I pack orders? Can I do things like that? Like if you want to get involved. And I think it's great. I mean, that's the great thing about, even though the restaurant industry has been so tough and hit in the last few years, to see them taking money that could be in their pockets and putting it of those in California. It's why I love it so much. Yeah. I know that you're in the middle of it. So I really just want to ask one more question, because when I think of LA chefs and people who have been there for so long, it's you and your partner. You know, Susan and you have been pretty representative of the culinary community for a long time. And that means you also represent LA. So LA as a whole is hurting and it's been decimated. What have you seen on the decimation side, and what have you seen on the hope side?
Well, you know, I think that, the decimation has just sort of been, I think I'm still in shock. I think we all are. Yeah. I think it's still really hard to wrap my mind around how much has been lost. But I'm a glass half full kind of person. Sure. So I am constantly, you know, sort of just so grateful to all the first responders, to the outpouring. Sorry. To the outpouring of generosity that I've seen. You know, it's been really amazing. I was on PCH yesterday and serving firefighters they drove 20 hours to get here from Maine. You know, we were serving people from these firefighters from literally all over Mexico, from everywhere. From Canada, from everywhere. Yeah. And it was just incredible how they rallied to get here and and I think this was on the west side, but I think they really, with all those men on the ground and women on the ground fighting the fires, I think the Palisades fire got under control largely because we had so much support come in. And then to be able to feed them was one of my most hopeful, you know, you see humanity pull together and you just, you know, I love it. I love it. Well, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for all the work you're doing. We will include a link to regarding her in there, and to also World Central Kitchen for donations. Thank you. I think that's a good place to start. Yeah. One more thing, if you don't have any money to donate, that's fine. If you go to the James Beard Foundation Climate Solutions for Restaurant Survival, there is a way to let your legislators know that you're worried about climate change affecting small businesses, especially restaurants. And, you know, between, you know, Katrina and Lahaina and Asheville and now Los Angeles, you know, everyone around the country needs to make some noise with our lawmakers about, you know, getting on top of climate change. Yeah, because it's real easy to be like, oh, the farming part of it, or you know, the more tactile, you know, was this called, you know, these vegetables ruined by smoke. It's another thing when you're seeing whole communities and restaurants that are people's livelihoods burned down. That is, and that's all. It's all connected. Yes. I cannot thank you enough. Keep doing the good work. Remember to take some time for yourself. And thank you so much. We have a song from the archives, and then we'll be talking to Andy from Home State and all the great work they're doing here on Snacky Tunes on HRN.
Andy, welcome back to Snacky Tunes. I always love having you on the show. I wish it was under different conditions, but anything that can bring us together to chat for 15 minutes can't be all that bad, right?
Right. I'm with you.
Yeah. So you and your sister and the entire Homestead family are doing a lot of great work out of the Pasadena location. And before we get into that, I'd love to hear about your relationship with the Pasadena, Altadena area, and what it means to you and the neighbors and the people you've met in the last few days.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I too wish it was under different circumstances. I am, however, really grateful to know you and to be a part of such an incredibly beautiful community in Pasadena, in LA, and at Home State. So the question was our relationship, and Home State's relationship to the Pasadena community.
Yeah. And the Altadena community and the people you've met and people you've helped over the last week, 5 days. What is time?
Interestingly enough, Home State opened in Pasadena during COVID, which was its own feat. It was either 21 or 22. My memory's failing me, but from the very beginning, it was a special community. It was there was a restaurant there before us that had a really deep community, and we knew when we moved in, we had big shoes to fill. Less about food and more about space and warmth and hospitality. So we really were excited about that opportunity to create our own connections with the community, which was undergoing a big change at the time. I mean, around the time I think you moved there, we had so many friends and young families who were moving from Silver Lake and Los Feliz, which was our original location, to Altadena because it was more affordable, accessible, and beautiful and charming, and all the things that we love about that part of town. So we moved into the neighborhood when a lot of young families were moving into the neighborhood, and it has been such a beautiful thing. I mean, we have so many regulars that our team welcomes several times a week. It really does feel like a community center there because it's just accessible. People feel comfortable, welcomed. You can come by yourself. You can come on a date. You can come with your family, and just make yourself at home. So I think people have an emotional connection with that space and with Home State. So
yeah,
it's really been.
I mean, we're there once a week.
It's been really emotional. This whole thing has been very emotional for us, very personal.
Yeah, I think. In talking to Mary Sue earlier, there's such this macro level, all of LA has been affected and then even on a smaller level, these neighborhoods, but it's individual stories. It's the neighbors you meet. It's the people and the kids who've lost everything. What sort of hope or what are you seeing that's inspirational for the people that come up or the volunteers that have maybe not been affected personally, but want to help those that have?
I mean, I'm inspired by your story, honestly, that even in experiencing such loss, you remain optimistic that you'll be able to rebuild. I think what I have seen from people who have been affected and who haven't been personally affected is such a deep desire to show up and support each other, not only for this week, but hopefully for the long time to come, because, some people are fortunate to have fire insurance and means to rebuild. Other people are not, especially families with, their equity and their house was their everything, and they didn't have insurance. So I think really looking out for those families specifically in long-term ways, making sure that we don't quote unquote move on. So right now it's feeling, it's really warm. It's like everyone is looking for support. So as things progress, Home State will hopefully be a vehicle to be a voice that doesn't go away and that keeps the light on for people with very, very deep needs.
Yeah. So in addition to helping people, you are and also part of a restaurant business, and you're spread out over many different neighborhoods, but it has to be some sort of effect on you and then your fellow restaurateurs and the community. What are you hearing from them? What are they saying? It's been amazing to see everybody give food, but at some point, they need to make money too in their business, and so much of it is week to week. What are some of the stories you're hearing?
I've heard stories of restaurants not being able to make payroll for the first time ever. That is not the case for us yet, but we can't take anything for granted. We were off to a really strong start at the beginning of the year, and it's just like a nosedive. We had to close not only the Pasadena location because of its proximity to the fires, but Sherman Oaks as well. Those are two of our busiest locations, and we are very closely watching our financials and trying to think of ways that we can potentially make up some of those losses, whether that's through right now we're about to launch this afternoon a kind of gift card program where our guests can purchase gift cards that those funds go directly to support affected families and people continuing to work on the front lines. So that not only helps us, it helps the community, it helps our vendors as well. I mean, I think people forget about the where this food comes from. Like right now, our
Vital Farms, best eggs in the biz.
Yeah, our purveyors are sitting on a ton of product because restaurants aren't ordering a lot. So it just has a significant domino effect that isn't visible, but that can, if we're not really, really proactive and smart and supported by the community through everyday ordering, we'll have really negative impacts potentially and result in, worst case scenarios, closing of a restaurant. Other scenarios are having to, let people go. So we'll do everything we can to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah. I mean, you alluded to COVID earlier and you had to pivot. And that's a completely different situation, but still a disruption to the normalcy of when you're budget forecasting for what you think is just going to be a regular year. But the thing that COVID taught us is that this isn't over in a week. Mm-hmm. It's not even over in a month, 2 months, 3 months. And how do you want people, or how would you like people to stay involved as people, and obviously life goes on for others and things inevitably change. Like, how do people stay involved over the long run?
Yeah, I think that, one of the first things we're going to do is host a community breakfast at Pasadena once we're able to reopen, to give place of people to gather, provide them with a meal on us. But then moving forward, one of the things that I realized last week was okay, we can't turn back time. What resources do we have? Our main product is food and hospitality, but in addition to that, we have a platform with the restaurant. So we started immediately sharing GoFundMes from our neighbors who have lost houses. I think moving forward, we've already heard from people in the community who want to host, to make sure that people have resources as they start to rebuild and look to rebuild. So I think maybe hosting things like community nights or things like that could be really useful. It's the just a couple blocks up is completely leveled. I haven't seen it with my own eyes, but I know that just looking at the map, just 2 blocks up from us is completely changed. So
yeah, but I don't
know what the answers are, but I think continuing to listen and to have our hearts in the right place and know that, this is a long haul. Is all I know right now.
So, as a volunteer, I think sometimes it's easy to not hold space for yourself because people have lost everything or suffering, things like that. But I think for those of us who need the support of the community right now, we need those people who are helping to take care of themselves as well. What advice would you give for people who are going full tilt right now in helping and volunteering to make sure that they don't burn out, to make sure that this can last for a long time?
The advice that I keep getting personally is to take a 10 minutes to meditate. But even that I find that really challenging too, because relentless. And I don't, it's all this is very timely. I think what my advice would be, and this helped me personally last week when I was feeling incredibly overwhelmed, is like, we can't solve all the problems all at once. We can set some priorities for the day, for the week, and focus on that. And know that as much as we can help one person, that helping one person, one family is significant. And that just happens like one interaction at a time. So I think just pacing ourselves is probably the best advice that I could tell myself and others.
Yeah. Well, I hope you listen to the advice that has been given to you, because we need people like you. So people nationally want to help. And I think as the goods pour in, right now there's like a lot of physical goods, but the money is really going to be the lifeline at the end of the day. Whether it's to buy tacos, buy pizza, things like that. Where can people send money? Because I think that's the question that I get asked the most. And I think there's different money for different things. But for specifically what you're doing in the food world, where can people put their resources?
Well, I mean, just speaking about our own community, we have a list of GoFundMes, like I mentioned earlier, that are being hosted for our immediate neighbors in need. So that's on our Instagram and story form, highlight form. We also have a Google Doc, a running Google Doc of those families as well. So we'll be sharing that out probably via newsletter. What else? I think if you don't live here and you want to support restaurants in general, I think ordering gift cards, it sounds so, I mean, like if you're far, like order a gift card maybe you're not going to have like a burst of like, confetti is not going to fall from the ceiling, but that actually is really helpful.
It's cash infusion.
So know that when you hit purchase on that gift card, whether it's $5 or $50 or $500, that is extremely helpful for restaurants. So that's my advice.
And we'll have links for that in below in the episode description. Well, listen, I cannot thank you enough. I'm excited to see about this partnership with you and hopefully Stumptown and feeding breakfast tacos and getting coffee to the people who need emergency responders and the community as a whole. Any final thoughts? Anything you want to share about these unprecedented times?
Well, I just love home state and restaurants so much because they really are just like a headquarters of humanity. And, I just am so grateful to be a part of this organization and this community, because otherwise it'd be so much harder, as hard as it is to be, in this situation and kind of navigate everything and find ways to keep the organization healthy and provide for the community. It does feel like we have a purpose and we have a voice and a vehicle to really nourish community in so many different ways. So I'm just grateful for that.
Well, I'm grateful for you and Breezy and the entire Homestead family. Really appreciate everything you're doing. Really appreciate you feeding the community. And we'll be knocking them back on that Pasadena porch before we know it.
Can't wait.
we have another song from the archives, and then we'll be chatting with my friend and chef Travis Hayden, because it's been a week since we talked on Tuesday, before we lost our houses, before our lives were kicked upside down, and we're just going to catch up. So here you go, song from the archives on Snacky Tunes on HRN.
This episode is brought to you by Wisconsin Cheese. There's a reason when you think of Wisconsin, you think cheese. Cheese is a huge part of Wisconsin's history and future. In Wisconsin, the state of cheese, the tradition of cheese-making excellence began 180 years ago, before Wisconsin was recognized as a state. Immigrants traveled to settle in this lush green hills of Wisconsin, bringing their cheese-making traditions with them. These storied skills, combined with the freshest milk available, created a cheese-making culture that is uniquely Wisconsin. Wisconsin's 1,200 cheesemakers, many of whom are third and fourth generation, continue to pass on old world traditions while adopting modern innovations in cheese-making craftsmanship. Find your next favorite cheese at wisconsincheese.com.
Travis, welcome back to Snacky Tunes. We have never had the same guest on back-to-back weeks. I've also never recorded an episode and then later that day, both one of the food gaffes and myself lose our house to forest fires. So a lot of firsts, but I know you wanted to come back on and sit down and chat. I'm sad to have you back for this reason, but I'm happy to hear your voice.
It's good to be back, and it's good to see you and hear you again.
You are really a crossover of the restaurant industry, who's both helping feed people through your restaurant and doing a lot of community outreach. And then also one of the victims of this, sitting at the center of that Venn diagram. How do you feel? What's this last week been for you?
Initially just shock and not really knowing what to do. I'm very lucky to experience so much grace from my community, my friends. Even you were one of the first people that called me, and before you even knew what had happened with your home. And, when we spoke, you were like, we're going to evacuate, just play it safe. So,
oh yeah.
And the next day I called you and was like, hey, what's going on with your place? And it was gone. So, it's a unique position that I'm in to be able to receive grace and be lifted up by my community, but also being a chef and having a restaurant where I can support it as well, and which has really been wonderful. Like, going through something like this, all you want to do is help as much as you can. You want to help yourself. You want to help your neighbors. And, especially as this was going on, I quickly realized that it wasn't just me. And when it first started happening, I was like, I hope this is just me. And I hope I don't see this affecting other people. And then as the day passed, the night passed, that was not the case. So several friends who lost their homes, friends evacuated and displaced. And, my heart goes out to everyone who that happened to. And, thankfully, Jill and Julian, who are the owners of Bart's Wall, who were on the show last week, were very much in agreement. It was their idea.
Yeah.
It's like, let's do this. Let's be here for the community. So I'm very happy to be able to contribute to the community and, in something as little as giving a meal to someone who needs it. And I'm really lucky to, be on the receiving end as well. I mean, the outpouring of love that I've received, all the, the free coffees in the morning, the free breakfasts and stuff, and, people sending gift cards and, everything. It's just, it's really been remarkable. So I'm proud to be an Angelino, and, I'm so happy that I'm still in the city.
Yeah. I mean, you are on the other side of town from where we are, and it's been a real interesting time in teaching people the geography of Los Angeles, because you were affected by the Palisades fire. You're literally on the beach in Santa Monica. We were affected by the Eaton Canyon fire, which is in the mountains. But everyone's come together. You know, it's a huge community that's all collected together. There's been also a real loss in the culinary community, despite them coming together, of people who are back of house, who've had to leave, who've lost their homes and things like that. What have you seen for the day-to-day workers, the people that you've worked with, or other people who have had to unfortunately leave the city?
I mean, there's many layers to it. I mean, there's people whose houses have burned down. There's people who have been evacuated, and there's people that needed to leave the city simply because of the air quality,
the health issues.
Yeah. And so, going back into it, our attitude was, let's try and be open and serve the community. But what comes first is the health and safety of our own employees. Mm-hmm. So, in the middle of service on Friday night, my sous chef had to leave. He was mandatory evacuation. He got out of there, and I worked the shift for him. And, the next day I just told everyone, I called everyone individually, and I said, if you don't feel safe, if you don't feel the air quality is good enough, like, you're under no obligation to come in. And like, there's no repercussion. It's like, it's totally fine.
Yeah.
Like,
don't worry about it. Yeah.
Be safe and be happy. It's the case with most of the restaurants here. So, we're just trying to keep everyone safe. It's the number one priority, and also keep everyone paid. If you want to,
you can,
come in. Like this is people's primary income. So we're just trying to give as many options as possible.
It's amazing the support you've had, and it's amazing that your restaurant is still there and standing and has the opportunity to get in. Some are gone. A place where you and I had lunch, the Real Inn, many a times is gone. A lot of the places up in Altadena are gone. What are you hearing, if you're hearing anything from those people who have completely lost their restaurants? How are they feeling? Is there any recourse? A lot of these places are not just new spots. These are decades-old institutions in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I haven't heard much from people that have lost their places. I've been kind of on the periphery with it. Places like Real Inn, they were allowed to be there and stay there after Topanga State Park took over the area. So it's a big question mark if the state park will allow even rebuild, which I hope they do. I mean, that is an institution that has served the community for many years, and it doesn't just serve the residents of Topanga. It's people all around there. Everyone in my community went to that, and we're 172 homes. So, I mean, these places need to be able to rebuild without obstacle. It's not just being a business, and it's not just families that own the businesses, which is a huge deal, but they serve communities. Like, they need to, and they need help going back.
You have been getting coffees and burritos and talking with other people, other chefs and things like that on the front lines. And Andy talked a little bit about this, and Mary Sue talked a little bit about this. You've also been dealing with people who've been coming in and getting fed, just, people looking for respect and dignity and things like that. what is advice that you would have to provide that as a restaurateur or anyone who just wants to help? What are you hearing from people? What are you seeing? What advice can you give for people who may not have the words as someone who's both feeding the people and also receiving the sympathy and help of others?
Yeah, I mean, as someone who's receiving help, I say just ask for help and be clear on what your needs are. I'm someone who never asked for help, and
you and me both, buddy. It's tough.
It was gut-wrenching writing a GoFundMe. I'm like, I don't want to do this. My friend Melanie made me do it.
Yeah.
And as soon as the moment I did it, all of those feelings went away, and I was just touched by the amount of love that came through, and not even just financial support, but people reaching out, people all around the world reaching out, and just
I know, it's crazy,
sending their love. And then and for people that want to help, I'd say the biggest thing is like really looking to help over the long term. It's there are immediate needs right now, and those resources are all over. I think it's kind of easy to find ways to help right now, but I think it's important that people look at how to help in a month from now. There's still going to be people displaced in a month. There's still going to be people that need to be fed. And, in 2 months, 6 months from now, like this is a long, long road out of this. So, maybe you're not in a position to help right now. Maybe you have too much work to do, or you can't fit it into your schedule, other obligations. But I can guarantee you for a very, very long time, there will be ways and need for help.
Yeah. I mean, you went through COVID. You, at your last restaurant, you were there, and you had to deal with that, and that's an extended thing, and you worked through that. People didn't think that was years, and obviously that's a different situation because people can still come in and eat and help and things like that. But it's the long game that really is going to be so important, because I think what we're seeing, the Asheville restaurant community was decimated a couple months ago. We're decimated right now. I can guarantee you we're not the last community to be decimated by some sort of natural disaster this year.
It's such a long road, and
such a long road.
Building. If you're someone who's saying, "I'm a realtor, I can help now," or "I'm a lawyer, I can help now," "I'm an accountant, I can help now," just keep in mind that what you can do can have a really, really big impact if you're not just helping now, but you're also helping in 6 months or down the line, because the needs are just ongoing.
Yeah. So as you start to look forward, I mean, you have the restaurant, and it's you guys came in with such momentum, and it was so crazy to have spoken to you that day that everything changed in our lives. You have to rebuild your life, which is a ton of work. And then you're the chef of a new, very popular restaurant that's also demanding. How are you going to balance your life?
I don't know. I'm figuring it out right now. It's, it was the SBA called me at 7 a.m. to talk about a disaster loan, and going through that as I was, brushing my teeth and putting my stuff together and going to the farmer's market. And I think that's just going to be a new norm of my life.
Yeah.
There will be things that I have to do. And, before I put all that stuff behind, I was like, I'll do it when I have a day off. And, the restaurant comes first. And, luckily Jill and Julian, the owners, they're very gracious and saying do what you need to do. This place is going to be here. And, my sous chef and my staff are really stepped up when I've had to be out for, we're going to dig through the rubble of my house, still a restaurant that needs to run and operate. And they've all stepped up to the plate. So I think this is just an adjustment with some new challenges, and, hopefully in the timeline of my life, it's just a minor setback.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way I sort of look at it too, is just you and I both have had major transitions over like the last few years in our personal lives. And I sort of know what 2.5 years feels like. And that's what sort of the road we're looking at now. And I think it's just tough because, and you and I have talked, like we were both feeling really settled this year in so many ways. And that like the momentum was coming and things like that. And I know I've had to go tell people being like, hey, I'm here. I'm available to work. Like, this is something that obviously I have to deal with, but like, I need this structure. I need this responsibility mentally, and the, not to be gauche about it, but like the financial resources that come with it, to help balance so that not everything is like putting our lives back together and not everything's an hour-long insurance call.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, it's a little less structured than it used to be. And it will be for a while, but, you know, it's just, this is what our new lives look like. It's, you know, rebuilding and starting completely over. You know, time when we thought it was like we kind of had it all. We were,
I know.
I never, starting over never crossed my mind.
No. And, you know, you and I both hiked into the wreckage of our homes, and even having stood there and seen it, I still don't believe it. I still don't. I mean, I know it, but like in my heart, it's like, oh, we're sort of, we'll be back there. But it's we are rebuilding. And I think that's the thing I've heard from a lot of people, is that the desire to stay in Altadena or the Palisades or Santa Monica and rebuild and be a part of the LA community. Yeah,
that's it. You know, my neighborhood we have a WhatsApp group, and we're all chatting, and you know, I think there's 172 homes represented in it, and every single person said they want to rebuild.
Everyone.
It's our community.
It's our community. Well, listen, I love you. I know this is airing on Sunday, but Saturday night coming in to have a meal with you and everyone.
Well, I can't wait to give you a big squeeze.
Ooh, just surprise me where it's going to be. Listen, if people want to buy gift cards or buy meals for people or make donations, so that you guys can feed the community, where can they go? How can they send money, be involved?
For us, we're just supporting the community on our own right now. So if you want to come in, we're going to be doing some specials where we're going to do a glass of wine and a dish where 100% of the profits will be proceeds will go to people affected by the wildfires. So I think just coming in and, you know, being with the community, supporting in that way, it's a huge help. It helps out all of us, really.
Amazing. Well, I love you, bud. I'll see you soon. I can't wait to break bread with you and rebuild with you.
Yeah. Love you too.
Love you. Big thank you to Mary Sue. Big thank you to Andy. Big thank you to Randy for helping set this up as well. To the entire HRN staff, to the entire culinary community in Los Angeles and national and international. Thank you. We're going to be back next week. We have more people. We're going to be focusing on LA and the food community and the media and things like that. There's, again, links in the episode description if you want to donate or get involved. Thank you so much. This has been Snacky Tunes on HRN, and we'll see you next time.
We talk about food. We talk about music with musical dudes. Finger on the pulse. Snacky Tunes.
Snacky Tunes is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.